Tonight we're here to celebrate not only God's faithfulness to Christ Home, but also to honor some of the people who have served faithfully in our community, and we're grateful for them. And we have two very special staff awards, our Legacy Service Awards, to present tonight. And here to present the first one, I'd like to introduce to you our Administrator for Nursing Services, Karen Alitzi, and our Corporate Compliance Officer, Brenda Mast. Would you please welcome them to the podium?
Good evening. My name is Karen Alitzi, and I'm proud to be here. I'm going to talk about Sue Cook, nurse educator, infection preventionist. These are the titles for her role at Christ Home. But Sue Cook has been far more than what her titles imply. Since she was hired on April 13th, 2015, to oversee staff training and development, Sue has been called upon to assist wherever there is a need. No one ever has to wait for Sue's answer. She just shows up. One can easily apply these additional titles to Sue: charge nurse, resident aide, dining room server, housekeeper, maintenance assistant, assistant director of nursing.
And there are a few titles that we've just made up, like Officer in Charge of Staff Testing and Vaccination, Chief of Research and Coordination of Personal Protective Equipment, Master of Seasonal Party Trinkets, Winter Storm Response Team Captain, On Call, Middle of the Night, Need a Nurse, Emergency Responder.
Sue's excellent clinical skills serve the community well, and she has become an expert in our electronic record system, Point Click Care, as well as Relias Learning System used for staff training. Sue's role was initially expanded in response to Phase 3 of skilled nursing's requirements for participation of Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, at which time she assumed the duties of infection control preventionist in addition to her other full-time responsibilities.
In addition to her service to the retirement community, Sue became an invaluable resource to the children's services programs, providing education and assistance to the house parents and relief parents in their medications administration program. But it was especially during the difficult, locked-down months of COVID-19 that Sue's knowledge, expertise, creative thinking, and willingness to perform well above the call of duty that will forever resonate in our hearts and minds. Sue would scour the internet in search of elusive personal protective equipment. She would churn out policies to reflect the procedures that had to be made up on the fly as we pushed forward in very uncertain and ever-changing situations. And Sue diligently ensured that all staff were trained and fully confident in how to use their PPE to minimize exposure.
The bottom line, there is little that has been asked of Sue that she couldn't nor wouldn't be willing and able to accomplish. And what she did, we can honestly say, was life-saving, as she played an integral role in the prevention of deaths related to COVID-19. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your commitment, your courage. I just looked at you, now I'm going to cry. And your compassion in serving the residents and staff of Christ Home. It's my pleasure to introduce Sue Cook.
I just want to thank these ladies, and I can't tell you, my 7.5 years at Christ Home have been a true challenge. Who would have ever expected COVID? I did a lot of clinical things in my 30 years at the hospital and my 14 years now in long-term care. So after 44 years of being a nurse, I am going to retire this November and spend some time with my family and traveling a little bit, which I love to do, but my heart will always be with Christ Home. And I just want to thank everyone for supporting me. They make me out to be some kind of a hero, which honestly, it's just the way I was brought up by my parents, my work ethics, everything is just something that I'm proud of. I wish I would see new generations of this, but we're struggling and we're dealing with staffing issues and family wanting so much more for our patients. And I have to say, Leslie, Karen, Brenda, Jess, they all have to deal with so much right now that, sometimes it's really hard, and we can, at least the team can work together and get things done for our residents, and we try so hard. And sometimes we get mad at each other because some of us try too hard. But, we're all there for the right reason, and I just want to thank everybody for these years. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much, ladies, and thank you, Sue. Our next presenter comes to present another Legacy Service Award. She is our Chief Financial Officer. Would you please welcome to the podium, Dee Bartolonzo.
Thank you very much. Patricia Ann Matthias has been faithful and dedicated to Christ Home for 28 years, joining us right after she graduated from college with an accounting degree. Over this time, she has excelled at every level of responsibility, from accounting assistant to her current position as director of our business services. Her skill set includes finance, insurance, technology, she's our whiz in that area, contract negotiations, accounting, regulatory compliance, and so many other areas. She puts in long hours, learns what is needed for our department and Christ Home to succeed, and trains and advises so many of her fellow team members in all Christ Home programs. She is a resource and a liaison to all Christ Home employees, residents, vendors, donors, bankers, auditors, inspectors, county and state personnel. Almost everyone that touches the Christ Home community knows that Patty's who you go to. Recent examples are that our auditors have stated she is always on top of things and makes it so much easier, they just finished the audit, to audit us than some of their other clients that they would not name. State reviewers recently expressed the exact same sentiment, and they actually gave us an extension for filing that we don't even have to file next year because it was so good this year that we'd get a 2-year extension. And believe me, that makes our life easier. So these are only a few examples of what she does every day, every minute, every year. She is always living the mission and the core values of Christ Home. And Christ Home has truly been the beneficiary of her enormous talents and skills. So I asked other people who have worked with Patty throughout the years just to give me some feedback, describe her in a few words. The response was overwhelming. Everybody I asked just threw out words. So these are some of the words that I'm sharing from others. Faithful, beautiful, loving, honest, empathetic, compassionate, attentive, thoughtful, appreciative, dedicated, hardworking, humble, generous, intelligent, kind, pleasant, a fabulous supervisor, resourceful, responsive, skillful, one smart cookie, trustworthy. And this is interesting, team leader, team player, and not the least, wickedly funny with a wonderful dry sense of humor. One person described her as the daily demonstration of love among her brothers and sisters in Christ. I want to thank those people who gave me their responses. They made my task a little easier, but they truly showed how valuable Patty is to Christ Home. So I am truly honored to be able to call her a true friend, that's a word I will use, and be the one that makes this presentation to Patty in recognizing her on behalf of the Christ Home community. She is a true embodiment of our mission statement, which you saw earlier, and all that she has accomplished during her tenure at Christ Home. She has always served the Lord with grace, dignity, compassion, and respect. Thank you so much, Patty. Patty said she doesn't want to say anything, so we will let her sit down. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee, and thank you, Patty. And I don't want to get in trouble with the ladies, but those two ladies standing right over there have a combined service to Christ Home of over 58 years, okay? It's my honor to present a Lifetime Service Award tonight. Once upon a time, a man was looking for God's will regarding his next place of service. The director of Christ's Home invited him to come and serve in a temporary position to assist him with some special projects. The man said yes. That was a little more than 34 years ago, and he's still here. Along the way, Christ's Home asked him to lead the Children's Services Program, and he said yes. He was then asked to take the leadership of the Lancaster campus in Paradise, and he said yes. He was asked to lead Children's Services from the Lancaster campus, and he said yes. When an unexpected absence occurred for house parents, he and his wife were asked to temporarily fill the position, and they said yes. He was asked to assist the fundraising development effort, and he said yes. Then he was asked to lead the development department, and he said yes. He is retiring from full-time service at the end of this year. We asked him to stay on part-time to lead our planned giving program, and he said, wow, I thought you'd have that by now. Yes. It's very rare in today's world to hear of someone who worked 34 years for the same organization. We're blessed to have had several people in recent years cross the 30-year service mark. Vern is one of the few. When Vern transitioned to lead the fundraising effort, Christ Home was raising between $500,000 and $600,000 a year. We just closed our last fiscal year on June 30th, and this past year we raised $1.3 million. Annual giving has more than doubled under his leadership. As Vern and I have met with donors over the past few years, and some of them are here this evening, it has been obvious that donors take great confidence in our work at Christ's Home because they have great confidence in his integrity and the way he relates to them. Vern has understood and applied well the principle that friend-raising precedes fundraising. It has been a blessing to work alongside Vern for the past decade. We started the Legacy Celebration event and the Spring Dinner together, and our events have grown in impact and effectiveness. Vern started our Championship for Children event, which is an indoor go-kart racing event, when most other companies are just doing golf outings. Championship for Children is now 10 years old, and participants make this a must on their annual calendar. Vern took an idea of mine and developed it into a vendor support program, evidenced by the banners you see around the gym. And a few years ago, a new group approached Vern about a partnership to raise support for children's programs in Bucks County. When Vern told me about it, I confessed that I wasn't really keen on the idea, but he patiently persisted, and our partnership with Good Stuff Thrift has exceeded both of our expectations. Relationships, creativity, and pressing forward with consistency on a daily basis. These are the hallmarks of Vern's service at Christ's Home. I've learned over the years that those of us who serve in leadership in Christian organizations are successful to the degree in which, first, God's hand of favor comes upon us, and second, how well our spouses support us. And in Vern's case, he has a loving wife who has quietly, selflessly demonstrated her support. Over the past decade that we have run events, Lois attended every single one of them to support Vern's work. Her example has spoken the following words: whatever you need me to do. Set up and decorate the tables? No problem. Clean up after the event? No problem. Welcome people at the registration table? No problem. Dish out baked ziti on the buffet line? No problem. Whatever you need me to do. So Lois, we want to thank you as well for your faithful service to the Lord here at Christ's Home. Vern, over the past decade, we've shared a lot of events together. We made a lot of memories. We've prayed together. We've planned together. We've processed new opportunities together. We've shared life on life together. And we've become grandfathers about the same time together. In fact, most of the time when we see each other, you open up your phone to show me the latest picture of your grandchildren, and you beam. You truly beam. It's wonderful to have so many of your family joining you tonight. And we're grateful that they're here, and we thank you, the family, for standing alongside your parents as they answered God's call to serve here at Christ's Home. We thank you. So Vern and Lois, on behalf of the Christ Home family, we are grateful for your faithful service. It is my honor to present to you our Lifetime Service Award for a job well done. Would you please both come forward?
Thank you. Wow. I should have gone first. Thank you, John, for all those kind words. And I'm just going to interject something here tonight because it's the last time I'm going to have a chance. Patty, well deserved. I've known you since you came here, and I've seen you grow in every way. Knowledge, confidence, responsibility, and your patience for me. So thank you. And Sue. Sue worked for me on October 4th, 2017. That's the night my dad passed away. He died at about 10:10 at night here at Christ Home in the retirement community in skilled nursing. And I had heard from John that Sue was in at 7 in the morning doing some of those nurse trainings. And somewhere between 8 and 9 o'clock, she stuck her head in Dad's room, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And she said to me, "I don't want anyone else signing his papers." So thank you. I want to thank John and the selection committee. You know who you are. For this recognition. On July 10th, 1980, and I got to tell you how fond Lois is of being up in front of people. I just wanted to, yeah. Did you want to go first? No, sorry. And I got to say, that's a great picture. And I don't say it about pictures with me, but I really like that picture. Our daughter Brittany took that, I think, last fall, and it's pretty cool. But in 1988, Lois and I, with 2 children, Amy and Aaron, came to Christ Home, as John said, temporarily. In 4 years, we worked on this campus here in Warminster, and the Lord added Brittany and Jennifer. They're with us here tonight. with the exception of Brittany. Brittany is serving the family by sitting next to my sister Marcia, who's in her very final stages of cancer. And she wanted us to be here tonight. And just appreciate that so much. The family blessings continue with Kenzie, our daughter-in-law, Sean, our son-in-law, and 3 really cool granddaughters. In May of 1989, I accepted the offer to become the children's program manager, and I knew nothing. I had been a youth pastor. Woo-hoo! That has nothing to do with the kind of work these people do. And Lois and I, as John mentioned, finally got true house parent experience about 6 years later. How timely is that? We were 7 months in cottage number 1, and Lois was the steady hand, for sure. In 1998, I began dabbling in development as an associate director of development, and in March of 2000, Rich handed me the reins to lead the fundraising efforts for Christ Home. Rich is here tonight. Thanks for that opportunity, Rich. I was the 4th person to serve in that position in just 5 years, so not a lot had been developed. And again, I knew nothing. So you start going to conferences and workshops and seminars and learning. But I have to tell you, 22 years later, I love asking people for money for Christ Home and their services and the mission. But the glory of God, the glory goes to God for any success. But I will say, the fun and joy has been all mine to meet many people and make many friends along the way. There's someone here that taught me a lot. Claire Lehman came in from Lancaster with his wife, Charlene. I've learned so much about print. You see the newsletter in front of you and the things that he taught me over the years. It's been great. And now his son continues to teach me things. I'm so grateful for my wife, Lois. 41 years we celebrated in July. She's been completely supportive of my work. She was once on staff as well, part-time up until 2001. But as John's mentioned, she's just always there, and I want her there. You know, let the kids fend for themselves. We're going off to a Christ Home thing, you know. I want to thank the Board of Trustees who over the years have endured my many reminders each year to contribute to the work of Christ Home so that we could have 100% participation by the board. I can tell you that most years, we do hit 100% participation. And that is to the envy of many of my colleagues in the development field, where their boards are not that involved. I'm honored but also humbled to receive this award. I truly wish I could have achieved more. I really do. Yet I am at the same time thankful for what the Lord has blessed Christ Home with here over these last 5 years. We've just seen some very encouraging growth along, with donor numbers, but also the amounts raised. And I'll steal a phrase from my old boss, Rich Smythe, to God be the glory. For those who are present that have financially supported the services of Christ Home, and you know who you are, and there's a good many of them here tonight, I thank you for your partnership. But I have a commercial. In January, I will be working part-time in my new role as Director of Planned Giving. And I would consider it a pleasure to speak with any of you about how you can help Christ Home long-term with a planned gift. My name is Vernon Wright, and I approve this message. God bless you again, and thank you for the honor of this recognition.
We have one more very, very special award to present tonight. When you review the history of an organization that has been around as long as Christ's Home, you realize that there are seasons of vision and growth, seasons of stability, and unfortunately, seasons of decline. The latter is rarely discussed for obvious reasons. Christ Home entered one of those seasons in the late 1970s and 80s, not meaning to disparage any persons who were here at that time, but the truth is that it was a season in which the organization lacked forward vision, needed significant renovations in facilities and infrastructure, and was struggling to maintain fiscal stability. In 1993, Christ Home looked to the outside for a new CEO. A businessman in the pharmaceutical industry was looking for a new place to serve God with his experience and leadership. His name is Rich Smythe. It took a couple of years to assess the landscape, but it became clear to Rich that major changes were needed. The retirement community needed expansion. You've just heard about that. But before that could happen, Children's Services needed capital investment and a new program model to better meet the needs of children. And before that could happen, the Board of Trustees needed a new alignment and focus to transition from being an operations board to being a governance board. Rich sought out the guidance of others to help guide the needed changes. One of the most important advisors was Jay Desko, who is with us here tonight. Thank you, Jay, for being here. Jay introduced Rich to one of his friends whom he thought could be of great help as Rich began to rebuild the vision and effectiveness of Christ Home. That man's name is Don Worthington. Don stepped in to help Rich transform the board from operations to governance. He helped bring about changes to the bylaws to create term limits for board members, and he honored that in his own service. He helped create the fiscal strength and foundation we enjoy today by advocating to transfer cornfields into equity and campus expansion to serve more people. For a span of 21 years, periodically taking time away when term limits expired, Don faithfully served on our Board of Trustees as a member at large, treasurer, vice chair, and chair. And as he stepped away at the end of 2021, he agreed to continue to provide counsel to Christ Home, especially in the areas of finance and banking. I've shared this privately with Don and Rich, but tonight I want to share it publicly. And again, I mean no disrespect to any of the people who have faithfully served on staff and on the board over the past 30 years. But it is my conviction and belief that if God had not brought Rich Smythe and Don Worthington to Christ Home in the 1990s, I do not believe Christ Home would have continued to exist and rise to the level of mission impact that it enjoys today. To make our presentation to Don, I've asked our retired CEO, Rich Smythe, who, by the way, still serves with us as a volunteer in our chaplaincy ministry, to come and share some thoughts about his appreciation for Don. Would you please welcome to the podium our retired CEO, Rich Smythe. Did I get it right? Most of it?
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. And John, thanks for asking me to participate. I think it was Vern was joking about when he was asked to do the various jobs that he was asked to do, he had no clue what he was doing. And that exactly defines what happened to me in 1993 when I came to Christ Home. And by God's grace, by many of you that are here tonight, that God surrounded me with people that knew more than I did, and I was just the coach. I put the team together, and God blessed that. And in particular for the board, there was a huge transition that was going on, and part of it was out of necessity that it was a operational board because there wasn't enough funding to have people on staff to fulfill certain jobs. So we had board members that, when I came in 1993, that were fulfilling operational issues, but they carried that into the board meetings. And it was clear to me and to others that I spoke to, Jay being one of the primary guys, that we needed to change to a governance board, and then we needed to lay things out as it related to strategic planning, as it related to fundraising, those types of things. So for me, when I met Don. And in addition to Jay, there was another man who was involved with that introduction. His name was Bill Eastburn. And Bill was a friend of mine and certainly a close friend to Don. And when we had the meeting, it was presenting to Don what the vision was, what the mission was, what the core values were, but really what the plan was going forward. And this would have been in the late 1990s at this point, maybe even 2000. And it was asking him to consider being a board member at that point. And I asked him if he would prayerfully consider that. And he gave me an answer right there at that meeting, as it turned out. He said, right now, I can give you 1 year. I'll commit to 1 year. And then let's see what the Lord will do. Well, 21 years later, it's kind of like Vern's story. Don has served off and on for 21 years as a board member of Christ Home. And for me personally, Don, and I've said this to you by phone, you were someone that came along at just the right time. We were facing going into the township with land development plans. We needed to put a business plan together. And, Don has had that experience throughout his career as a missionary in Haiti, but also as a banker in the banking industry. So for me to be able to meet with Don and then share where we were, what I thought was going to be happening, and for him to commit to come on for a year was solidified what was happening, where we were, what was going, and there were changes that were happening within the board. So for me, as I think about you, Don, your integrity is a word that I thought of. I was talking to Jeannie before I came over, and I said, he's just a man of integrity. He does what he says, and he means what he says. And for me to have someone alongside me that was willing to share his experience, his knowledge, even as we were changing, massive changes at Christ Home. Dee, where you at? You would know that, right? And it just was, we had somebody that was leading the charge at the board level. Then we added other guys that had that same experience, Bob Feller, Dave Shoemaker, others that also had experience that we could lend to Christ Home as we move forward. So for me, as I was leading that process, it was really having people that came into the realm of supporting, guiding, leading, sharing. And, Don certainly was one of those guys. So for me, Don, I just say, once again, thank you for listening to the Lord, being obedient as far as I'm concerned, but hanging in there, too, while we went through all those things. Don, like some of the residents out there, sat in some of those long meetings with the township in the early years, back in 2001, 2002, 3, 4, and 5. We got the final approval in 2005, but for the master plan. But it was guys like Don that really, for me, as I look back over everything, it was at the board level where things needed to be executed, planning and execution. And I think that's really what Don was able to help with. But I also want to give a shout out to Judy, because his wife many times hosted the board meetings. And we do a little retreat. Jay would do some training for the board, and we also got some great food that Judy coordinated and helped out with. So Judy, I want to say thank you to you as well. So they're my personal thoughts. Don, if you would come up, and I guess Judy also, come on up. We'd like to honor you, and we just want to say thank you for your service. Thank you.
Don, it's our honor to present to you the Legacy Leadership Award, and we put a verse here on this plaque from Psalm 78:72. As it was said of King David, he shepherded them with integrity of heart and with skillful hands, he led them. Thank you for your leadership and your service and your friendship to Christ's Home. And Judy, thank you as well for standing by your husband all these years. Thank you. God bless you.
One quick story about that first board meeting. I did commit to 1 year with Rich, and that first board meeting we spent as a board, I think about a half an hour, making a decision on what color paint to do in one of the rooms. And I thought, having come out of a bank board meeting as a chair and over the years spending a lot of time in very important decisions, here we were as a board deciding on paint. And I almost, driving home from here to Doylestown, thought, what have I gotten myself into? But through that 1 year, with Rich and I having lots of lunches together and a good time together, we were able to restructure our board meetings to having them stay away from paint colors. So that was not part of it. But thank you. It's been a privilege to be involved, and I just want to thank you.
We're going to bring Dave Breidinger also into this picture. Dave is our current chair of the Board of Trustees here at Christ's Home. All right, and Dave Shoemaker has also served as a chair of our board. So for Rich and I, these are the, including George. You know what? I'm going to stay out of this picture. Take the picture. That's great. I'll just talk for a minute. Dave Shoemaker, Don Worthington, George Zolflick, and Dave Breidinger have been the chair of our boards during the tenure of Rich and myself. So that's quite a collective group of brain power right there, I'll tell you that. So would you please express your appreciation to all of these people for their leadership? Well, I hope by now you understand and have a sense of feeling why we call this the legacy celebration. Because there's a tremendous amount of legacy and service and faithfulness of so many people in this room that have brought us to where we're at today, and we're grateful. But we're going to finish the way we started, and that's to turn our attention to the one who truly has made all of this possible, the one who has been more faithful than anyone else, and that's the Lord.